Hey guys, it's Andre here again. Welcome to another episode of the Canticle Boring Show. Today, this is going to be a bit of a special episode because we're not just going to look at the software, but there's also going to be a hardware part of what I'll be showing you. So from the last time, I'm not sure if you actually watched the other episodes. If you did, that's good. If you didn't, I've been creating over a few episodes of this show. I've been creating a website that is based on Blazor. Right now it runs on server and client as well, and it serves drivers of cars in my hometown, Brno. It shows them the residential parking zones and the restrictions around them. So that was the main use case for my website. And today what I actually want to focus on is IoT, and specifically it's a GPS tracker that I created in the past that I wanted to put in my car to actually watch for the parking restrictions automatically. So today I'm going to show you what I've built in the past. Of course, it's really alpha draft of the component. I'll show you the code, part of which you can see on my screen already. I'll explain what that does and show you how we can connect that to a headless-based architecture online. So we're going to be looking at webhooks, at serverless functions, and other things. So let's start with the GPS tracker. Actually, I have it right here. Let me actually make the webcam window a bit bigger. Okay, that should be enough. So this is what I was talking about. So it looks like something you put your foot in, but let's take a look at how that works. So this big thing you see, this is a Sigfox antenna. So that's the IoT provider. So whenever I need to send a GPS location from the car to the internet, I use the Sigfox network. This is the antenna that actually sends the message. And let me show you the rest as well. So it's all connected via this non-soldering board. But the important thing here is this GPS antenna. So you can see that it's a standard GPS antenna. You can buy this off Amazon for a few dollars. So this is how it looks like. What I've learned while using that piece of hardware is that it takes a while to lock your position. So this device usually needs about a minute from cold start to start working. Now this part, this red board, I don't even know how that's called, but the thing, what it does is that whenever it gets a lock on GPS position, it actually gets the position, does its magic, and then turns off the power supply. Yeah, so this is what turns off the power supply to save some battery. And in 4 hours, there is another module, this little module, that in 4 hours actually turns it all back on. So by default, this sends GPS location every 4 hours to the internet. And the heart of it all, that's this little part. I'm not sure if that's visible. Yeah, probably not. This is Arduino Mini, or actually, yeah, it's a Arduino Pro Mini. It runs on 3.3 volts. And the only thing it does is it connects all of these modules together. So whenever I put a power supply to this little USB connector, I'm just using a simple power banks. So whenever I do that, this Arduino actually runs the code that you see in the background here, and it gets a lock on the GPS position. Okay, let me make myself smaller. And let's take a look at this thing. So it basically runs the loop here. That's what you can see on the screen here. So what it does is it tries to get GPS coordinates. Now in this method, it spends, it's not a rare situation that it spends over 2-3 minutes there. So it takes quite a long time to get a GPS position, but that's because it's a cold start. And when it gets the GPS position, it sends the GPS position or the GPS coordinates via the Sigfox network to the backend. So that's the only thing it does. Yeah, it doesn't do anything else. Then it puts itself to sleep, and it sleeps for. Let me check. Yeah, it's defined somewhere over here. So it's defined in frequency, and I think I've set that up for 4 hours. Yeah, so that would be this value. I think these are seconds. So if we put that into calculator, that's exactly 4 hours. So in the meantime, let me actually connect that to a power bank here. I actually have another one that has a nice logo on it, but actually not every power bank is capable of powering that, because some of the power banks automatically switch off when Arduino is taking too few of power, or I don't know why that happens, but you can see that right now it works. This is the Arduino. Okay, let me show you that. Hopefully you can see that. So it lights blue, and the GPS tracker is still off because it takes a while to lock the position, but let me actually put it back in the box. Okay. It's a lot of things here. I hope nothing touches anything that would be under power. So I'm just going to put it near the window here, and we'll see if we can get some position here, because my window is actually facing north, and from my experience it doesn't really get the GPS coordinates in here, so I might need to use another window. So in that case I'll just take it to the other side of the flat. There it should be able to get good lock on the location. So that's what happens here. And of course, when the notification is sent, it's sent via Sigfox network, and you need to actually, if you want to use it that way, you can either look at the location in the Sigfox UI. So actually, let me jump into that. No, that's not the right window. This is the right window. So there are more than just one network that you can use, but I'm using Sigfox. You can buy a module for Sigfox again on Amazon or AliExpress for just a few dollars. The important thing is that if just buying that module does not give you access to the network. So usually those modules are sold with a 1-year subscription of the network, which was also my case. But how it's going to work in the next year, I still have no idea. So I bought it, I think in April or March. So in 3 months, I'll let you know. So what you can see here is that this is the device list. So when you register and log in, and you actually register your device into Sigfox, what you can see here is the list of all devices that you have. And when you click on the ID of the device, it takes you to detailed description of the device, and it shows you all the messages that the device sent to the backend or to the network. So here you can see that there are a bunch of messages from April, and you can see that while I was testing that, there are about 4 hours delays between each of those messages. So that's actually 4 hours plus the time it needs to get the GPS location. Yeah, so it's about 4 hours. And how this works is that apart from just the notification that is sent to the system, you can also send some data. What you see here, that's this is the last data message that the device sent, and you see it's in hex format. The reason is that Sigfox is capable of transferring only a limited amount of data. Here you can see that, just put it here in the notepad, that we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 characters here. So whatever you need to send over, it's got to be in 16 characters. I think this is Unicode, so it's either 16 or 32 bytes. I'm not sure right now, but This is the maximum that I was able to put through the network back to webhooks. And the way how it works is that for every device that sends Sigfox notifications or Sigfox messages to the network, you can define a webhook that would be triggered when the message is received. So what I'm actually looking for is for the module to send the data to Sigfox, and Sigfox to send the webhook to my serverless function or a normal function, however you wanna implement it, and send this data to me. Now, in my case, when we let's look at Google Maps. I'll try to get a location somewhere, let's say in the center of Brno. So when you need to get a GPS coordinates from Google, just right-click, do what's here, click on the GPS coordinates at the bottom, and it gives you the location here on the left. So when we copy that over, you see that in order for the module to send some GPS information back to my system, I need these two numbers. And this is obviously, this is the decimal. Usually it's a decimal. And this is obviously more than what the Sigfox is capable of transferring. So the way how this is usually handled is that you multiply the value by 1 million. And this is of course in a decimal system. Yeah. So we're gonna multiply that by 1 million. In that case, we're just basically removing the decimal point here. So we got two numbers. Let's remove that. And now we're going to transfer this number to hex format. So let's try to do that online. So let's try to copy this number. And we're going to do decimal to hex converter. Okay, this works. So the decimal value is 49196151. We'll convert that, and you see that the hexadecimal value is this. I'm going to do the same for the other one. That's the value. And of course, to be able to actually put these two together, I need to either put some separator in between, or I need to make sure that this number has a defined number of characters, or of characters basically. So you see that this one has actually 67. So I'm just gonna prefix it with 1 0 and the other one with 2 zeros. And in the end, what this gives me is exactly the thing that I can push through the Sigfox network. Right, so this is the thing that Arduino needs to do in order to send any data to the network, so that we can get the GPS coordinates in the serverless function. So this is what my code is also doing. Let me see where that is in the code. So this is already string. Right, so here we have a character array of 16 characters, and we're getting the GPS coordinates here, and this is where we're doing the magic. So this is the latitude, this is longitude, and you see we're multiplying that by 1 million and converting that to the hex format. Okay, so this is the way how I'm just transferring the data back to the system. And now let me see if I can find the event configuration. Now, the UI of this is not the best, to be honest. When you're looking for something like a callbacks, it takes a while of clicking around. But let me see if I can actually find it. Yeah, so if you click at the device type, there are callbacks here, And you see that currently I have one callback defined that goes to an Azure function that I deployed early this year. We're going to change this later for Netlify, but just so you know that this is a place where you define the callbacks, and what Sigfox gives you is the ID of the device, and that's let me show the ID. That's this ID, so 3865D9. So that's the ID. So if you have multiple devices connected to the same network, this is the way how we can distinguish between them. It can give you a time, but obviously when your serverless function receives that, it can get the time automatically, like date time now or whatever else. And it gives you the data. So you see here that I'm using a token here that I will probably have to reset because now you all see it. I'm using an ID of the device and the data that the device sent to the network. So that's the GPS coordinates. So this is the webhook. Whenever the network receives a message from the device, it will create the webhook notification with this data and send it to your functions. And that's all that is basically for the IoT. It's very simple to use. You just plug it in and it all works. Right now, I think it did not get the GPS coordinates, so it didn't work. Let's see. I just switched it on again. We'll see if that gives me any location. But I think that the last message I got was an hour ago. Let's check the messages. Oh, I got the message here. So you see that the quality is not that good, but you see that I got these data, and when we look at what that is, oh sorry, let's copy that. You see, it's very similar to what I created before. So I'm not that far from the city center. Alright, so that's first part. Now the second part that I wanted to show you, apart from the Sigfox UI, is how I changed the Blazor app. So from the last time, I've done a bit of a refactoring, and I actually introduced AutoMapper, because I found that it's easier to use your own models, plain models, because if you're using the dual template or the time warp Blazor template, it actually uses stores for transferring data between the client and server and so on. And the stores, when the client side actually wants to use the store, it creates a copy of the store. And the copy mechanism apparently can't handle read-only lists, which category content uses a lot in the generated models. So when you look here for a generated model of duration, for example, there's a content item system attribute system, and it uses read-only list. So the reason why I did all the refactoring was because this is not well received with the store duplication. If you run into this same problem and have a better solution, let me know. But I just switched to using my own models, and I introduced an AutoMapper. So that was a nice surprise that Blazor is capable of running AutoMapper. And I created a nice mapping service that contains all the configuration for automapping from one model to another. So if you know this one, just know it works in Blazor nicely. If you don't know this NuGet package, take a look at it. It's a total game changer once you get to know this one. It's just so easy to switch the types and data between classes. Really great module. So that's what I introduced, and I also introduced, let me actually run the site, I also introduced a new field in the database, and that is the SigfoxId. So I'm not sure if this is gonna, okay, it works, so that's good. Usually it takes the SQL Azure a while to bring the database up if it's a cold start. Right now the database seems to be warm, so that's nice. What I did is I added one column here as a Sigfox ID for every car, because the expectation is that every car will have its own device, and when the device sends the message through the system, I need to be able to identify that somehow. So you see that here I'm just querying for a specific device. But what I need to be able to do is, by the device, identify the specific car and most importantly the permit for zones. So in this case, you know that this car has a permit for 114 zone. So that was the reason why I changed this. And when we look at settings in the app, we're gonna see hopefully in a second all the cars here, which is just one. And we also should see the areas once it's loaded. Alright, so the car is here, and when I open the car or edit the car, you see that the tag ID is set to 3865D9, which is the ID of the module. And the permit is for 114. One question that I see here from Ryan. Hey Ryan, good to have you here. Whether I'm using a server-side or client-side Blazor. This is actually a combination of the two. That's why I call it WebDual. It's based on the Time Warp Blazor template. Just Google it if you don't know that one. And the way it works is that the first load, it actually runs on server. So server is taking care of all the view states and other things. And once the client libraries are downloaded, it actually switches to client. That's why when you look at, let's say, the map state, or where do we have that? Maybe map component will be a better place to see this. No, this is also not where the store is. Yeah, so never mind. So it basically just uses store, so you can't really store the data just like that in components, or in components, yes, but when you're using services and other features, you actually need to use stores, but I don't know where the stores are defined right now. Maybe it's in startup, let me check. No, it's not here. Let me check the map page. Nope. Okay, last place I'll check is the car state. This is just the state. So the thing is that this whole state is actually stored in the store, and it's using mediator pattern, but I don't really know the specifics. So maybe someone more experienced could explain that. But it works. That's the important thing. Another question: what version of .NET I'm using? To be honest, I have no idea. I'm always trying to use the latest one, so I would assume .NET Core 2 point something. I'm not using 3 as far as I know. Yeah, it's 2.0. Let's check for the client. Yeah, it's again 2.0. All right. So that was the only thing I wanted to show you from Blazor side. That I added one field, I restructured the project a bit, and the ID is here in the database. We're not going to be looking at the Blazor in this session anymore, so I'm just going to close the Visual Studio because that just works. Nothing more to do there, it just works. And what I actually want to elaborate a bit more on is the Netlify functions. So last time I showed you how to create, I think it was this one, the check permits function, and that function just configured itself and looked into the database for validity of car permits. So in case there were multiple cars here, let's actually select everything without the where condition. So if there were multiple cars here, they actually have a permit validity. In my case, it's the 31st of December. But if that would expire earlier, I would probably need to go somewhere to get my permit prolonged. So that's exactly what this function does. It looks in the database for all permits that have the validity close to, or like a week in the future, so that you have some time to take care of it. And if that is less than a week, it sends you an email. So here is a simple SendGrid integration that sends an email to the email address. Obviously, I'm not using any user system right now, so it just sends that to my email address, and it sends me the fact that my car permit is expiring soon. So this was a very easy function. Very straightforward, just check the permit, send an email, and that's it. The function that I want to show you today, and I actually haven't tried to deploy it yet. This is just a local function, so we'll see if we can deploy that to Netlify. But what this function does actually are a few things. Now let me put that into a blank notepad to make it clear. So first of all, the function needs to verify the Sigfox request. So Sigfox is going to be the network that invokes this function. Right. So first of all, I'm going to verify the Sigfox request, and if you watch closely, you've noticed that where is my callback? In the callback, there is a token here. That's this part. So this is like a basic authentication to identify that Sigfox is really the service that sends the request. So there's a token that nobody knows. Well, now everyone knows, but I'm going to change it later. So this is what I use to perform some basic authentication. So first of all, it's going to have to verify the Sigfox request token. And it's also going to need to check that there is an ID and the GPS coordinates. So this is all what makes a good request. Otherwise, if this is not fulfilled, then I'm just going to return a 400 as a bad request. Once this happens, once this is verified, the next thing I need to do is check the database for SigfoxId. So I'm going to get an ID here. That's the ID of the device. I'm going to have to look in the database to see if there is a record that has the same Sigfox ID. And if there is, I'm going to get the car details from that. So at this point, I know what kind of car it is, and I know the GPS coordinates. The next thing I have to do is get all areas from headless CMS. And when I get those, all of those, what I need to do still is to match, or not match, but find where the car is parked. So I have a GPS coordinates of the car, and I have all areas and their boundaries, yeah, or their borders. So I can check all the areas if the car is within those areas. That's another thing. Once I do that, and in case there is no area, that's good. That means I'm parked outside, so no restrictions apply to me. If there is an area, then the next thing I need to do is check permit of the respective car. And if that permit actually matches the zone that I found from the GPS position of the car, then it's okay. So it can be either okay or get out of there, you may be towed. So this is the end result, and in case this is the end result, I do nothing. If this is the end result, I just send an email notification. Later, hopefully sometime early next year, I'm going to be looking at a Twilio integration, so I'm just going to try to send messages to mobiles via SMS. But right now, I know that the SendGrid integration is working, so I'm just going to send emails. So, quite a bit of work for one Netlify function. And I already implemented this whole thing. So Let me just walk you through that. It took me a whole day, so we will spend a lot of time here on these things. So let me walk you through that, so you maybe do the same in your projects. So first of all, what I do here is, obviously I have all these modules to help me in achieving my goal. What I have here is that I'm just first checking the request data, and I'm providing the event here. Event contains the whole request that comes to Netlify. So I'm just using the whole request to as a parameter for the check request data function, and that is in the Sigfox folder here. And you see that first of all, I'm just checking if the token is available, and if the token is actually the same as the Sigfox token that I have in the .env file. Now I know that I showed you that token. I'm not showing the env file because there is way more secret things than just the token. So just know that the Sigfox token is defined there to the same value that I have in the Sigfox UI. And if that is not a match, then I return 403 as an unauthorized request. The next thing is I'm checking the data. So we're looking at this part, right? So we verified it's a Sigfox request from the right sender. And now I'm just looking at the GPS coordinates and ID. So you see that here I'm checking the query string for ID, and I'm checking also the presence of data. And just apart from the data being there, I also need to verify that the data has the right length. So that's the 16 characters, right? 8 characters for latitude, 8 characters for longitude. So we're looking at GPS coordinates here. If this is not true, then it's a bad request, and we return, otherwise it's fine. You see there is also one other function. Let me actually make it, oh, I can't make it bigger. So there's another function for GPS coordinates here that does the same thing as the Arduino code, but this actually does it the other way around. So it takes the data string, the 16 hex characters, and slices them in between. So you see that I'm getting 8 characters, that's defined length. And with those characters, I'm just parsing them into integer, because obviously it's right now it's in hex, and I need to have the integer in the decimal form. And then I just divide it by 1 million, and that gives me the GPS coordinates back here in this function. And once we get the coordinates, we return them as an object. But let's not get ahead too much. Right now we're just checking the request. So that's what I did here. Okay, so the Sigfox request is verified, and tag ID is this part. Then I'm looking at the GPS coordinates, so this should be quite easy and fast. And then I'm moving to another use case here to check the Azure SQL for the SigfoxId. So just like last time, I'm building the connection to SQL Server and waiting for the first ID or the first row that actually matches the SigfoxId. So at this point, we're doing the same query as I showed you here before. So we're looking for everything in the cars database with SigfoxId 3865D9, and this is the row that will be returned to me. Okay. I don't think I need this, but what I definitely need is to find if there is any car like that. So if the ID is not assigned to any car, I return the request with a 404 not found. Otherwise, I found the car, so I just output that, including the license plate. So we just got the car details from Azure SQL. And the next part is interesting because it needs to get all the areas from headless CMS. Now I showed how those are stored in the headless CMS. Not sure if I can do that now here, but let me try actually a different browser, because I think Firefox has a problem with self-signed certificates. So let me check if I can show that in Chrome. I'm just going to drag it in a second, Just gonna switch to the right project. Well, it actually wants me to log in again. Okay. Okay, we're in the right project here. So what I'm looking at are the zones data, and I hope that there is the custom element working. Okay, let me create a new version. Oh, this doesn't seem right. Oh, sorry, that's a restriction. I'm looking at areas. So let's take a look at this one, for example. Right, so this is the custom element that actually stores all the data. It's not ideal in terms of UI, but you see that this actually holds all the coordinates. Now there's a lot of coordinates. This actually used to be a really nice red marker. You can see that one here. And essentially, this is just a list of coordinates, just as you see it here on the right in this text area. So it stores all the coordinates of the zone that I need to actually consume in the Netlify function. So that's what we are getting here. I'm just getting the project ID from the environment variables, initializing the delivery client, and getting all the data from the headless CMS. And here you'll see that there is a little console log with all the areas. This is just to show me that there are 0 or 23. I think there are 23 areas right now. So this tells me that I actually got all the areas. And for every area, I'm trying to find if the GPS coordinate that the module sent me, if that is in one of these areas. So that's the getAreaBindPoint function. And here I'm using turf library. Not sure if you know this one. It's a really good one for spatial computing and calculations. The main point of using that is actually that you don't have to go into complicated cycles and other things. You just provide here points of the polygon. So you see that the area has the area data here. That's just the array of GPS coordinates, and I'm just transforming that into polygons and create the turf.polygon class, and at the end I'm just calling the boolean point and polygon function. And what this does is it tells me true or false whether a point is inside the polygon or not. So effectively, in my case, it tells me if the car is parked within a zone, and if it is, then it tells me in which zone. So in this array, I have all the zones that were matched, and I'm just returning. For now, I'm returning the first one that I found. But the thing is that the zones can overlap each other in some cases, so I'm just going to have to work with priorities. I think that's also visible here, that each zone has a priority. Here it is. It's a low or medium priority. So in those cases, I'm just going to have to order them by the priority. But for the simplicity of this use case, I'm just using the first zone that I find. And when I do have that, or if I don't have it, then I just return OK, no zone match. So that means that's this case. That no area was found and we're good. If there is a zone found, then we need to check the permit of the respective car. So that's the next part here, where I'm just looking for the restrictions. And these zones is actually what the car has assigned. So here we're looking at the details of the car. You see that there is a car zone permit value, and I'm splitting that by the comma. So in my case, I have only one zone permit for one zone, but you can have zone permits for multiple zones. In that case, there would be a comma here. So I'm just building an array out of that, right? And here, when I know in which zone the car is parked, I'm just checking if that area or if that zone is included in the zones that the car has a permit for. If it is, I'm just returning OK, and if it doesn't, I'm sending the email. And that actually concludes this function. So it took a bit of time to put it all together, but it was mainly just tweaking around with the right data types and API keys and things like that. But you see that the email sending is really easy, and the conditions are quite self-explanatory as well. So in case there is no permit and we're sending the email, the subject is going to be the license plate of the car, because one person can have multiple cars, and that the car may be towed because it's parked in the wrong zone for which it has no permit. So let's check how that works. I'm just going to run the function locally so I can show you how it works. And this is going to take a while. The more modules that you use, the longer it takes. And actually, let me check. Yeah, this is good. Check location, that's what I'm looking for. And in the meantime, I'm just going to prepare a request to that function. So looking at locals 9000, and this is the way how the URL should be structured. Let me copy that over to Notepad to show you this in the greater detail. So this is the base API endpoint. That's the address of the function. And here you see that I'm using the token. That's the token that I use for a basic authentication. There's an ID, and there are the data of the location. So essentially, this is the web authentication that Sigfox will send later. So now I'm just checking if that works. And let's first try the invalid attempts to the function. So let's see if it's already running. Okay. Just going to put it here, and on the left side I'm just going to put the browser. So you see that first I'm trying to unauthorized attempt. That's okay. So let's put here the token, but not the ID or data. So you see it's a bad request. And if I put here also the data, this thing. I'm just going to try to change this a bit so that the ID doesn't exist in the system. We should see the not found message. So in this case, the car was not found in the database, and the function ends. And if I put here the right ID, it should go all the way. So you see here that we got 23 areas. We got the point at this location. So that's what I defined here. And you see that no zone was matched. So probably the GPS coordinates on this address are outside of the zones. So let me try to use a GPS coordinate that's somewhere in the middle. I'm just going to try to use that. And in that case, I'm going to need the converter again to convert these numbers to a hex format. So this is the first part of the data value. And this is going to be the second one. Okay, put there the prefixes. And now let's try that. Okay, so the function actually replies, okay. That's the reason. The reason for that is that when Sigfox actually calls this webhook, calls this function, it tracks the HTTP status code that you return. In case everything went smoothly, regardless of if the card can be parked there or not, you need to return HTTP 200, because if you don't, then Sigfox can retry to send that notification because it feels it wasn't success. So in my case, it's okay. I send the 200 HTTP code, and here in the console, hopefully you can see that the Sigfox request was verified. We found the GPS position, we found the car as well, and we found that it's parked in a parking zone 1.1-00, so it's the city center, and the car should probably not be parked there because the Netlify function set the email notification. So in a second I should be receiving that email. It's not there yet, but I should receive it, so I'll show you that then. But you see that the function is working, or it seems to be working nicely. So what I want to show you now is how to actually deploy that function, and I haven't done that yet. So if this doesn't work, please bear with me. So you see that my functions are actually in this folder. It's folder Netlify. So this is what I'm seeing in the Visual Studio Code here. And Netlify claims that I can just drag and drop the site folder here. So that's what I'll try to do. Okay, it seems to do something. We'll see if that works. Okay, site is deployed. Site is deployed here. So let me try that. And I'm looking at the function called check location, and it should give me unauthorized at this point. Okay, it's not there. Let's try functions. Okay, still not there. So let's see what's wrong there. I don't need a custom domain for that. Okay, site is live, but page not found. Okay. Oh, sorry for that. Yeah, I can do that, but if you haven't seen the terminal because of my head, sorry for that. But this is essentially what I was showing. So that's how the function went. But right now, I'm just trying to see how I can access the Netlify function from here. And it doesn't seem to work. So guys, if you have any suggestions, the name of the function is check location. And that's also what I'm calling locally, /check location. So that should give me unauthorized, but it's not. But maybe I need to use the repository here. This is just an example. This feature requires continuous deployment, so I'm just going to need to use Git repository and install all the Netlify features that come with it. Okay, that's alright. So that's what I'll do. I'm just going to create a new repository for the Netlify functions. Let's call that here Netlify. Let's make it private for now. I'm just going to make it public later, but in case I push something that should stay secret, I'll just leave it as it is now. Okay, now I'm just gonna, oops, just gonna push everything in there. So, just gonna add everything. Oops, I shouldn't probably add node modules, right? Probably delete both of these. Let me find a git ignore for Node.js. Sample node project ignore, that sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. Now, a very cool thing that I haven't learned till earlier this year is that if you need to create a git ignore, and Windows doesn't really like the files that are dot something, you can just put a dot at the end, and it actually makes it just a git ignore, so that's nice. So just put all the data in here. Oh, actually, Visual Studio Code is offering to do the same thing. So this is still happening. Okay. Oh, we should be good, I think. Yeah, it's in a git ignore, so never mind. So I'm just gonna edit again. And put all the files there. Okay. Let's add it there. And let's add this thing. And we're pushing into master. That's always a good thing, always a good practice. But I think we can live with that for now. And that should be done. Let's see, okay, that seems to work. So right now I just need to link it here. So I'm just going to link it to GitHub. Okay, Netlify asks me to authorize itself for GitHub. That seems to be good. Okay, it doesn't have access, that's okay. And I want to install Netlify. Okay, so Netlify actually asks me where I want to install it, so that's for my repository. And only select the repositories. And let's look for this one. Read access, okay, that's fine. Cool. So let's see if we can actually deploy. Branch to deploy is master. And let's deploy. Okay, and queued. This actually feels really easy. Okay, 2 new functions to upload, so that sounds promising. Site is live. That sounds even better. 2 membership functions actively running in production. So let's try this one. So I should get unauthorized now. Okay, perfect. That's what I was expecting. And what I need to do now is actually take this and go back into the Sigfox UI and change that. So let's check location, and the rest stays the same. So the token stays the same, ID and data stays the same. HTTP method is get, that's fine. So let's just save that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to run that thing again. Okay. So we'll see if we can get a GPS location here again. It worked an hour ago, so we'll see if that's going to work again now. So the final reason, Ryan, why it didn't work the first time was because it actually required me to deploy the functions from GitHub repository. So once I did that, it seems to work well. I was trying to deploy this in a normal site. That was the mistake. So now when it's deployed as a function, it seems to work well. I can also check permits. That's another function that I have there. Let me just change the permit validity to make it less than a week for my car. And we'll see if that works as well. Okay, that's saved. That should be also quite easy to test. Check permits. Okay, I expect it to have a notification sent, so there's something wrong in implementation. Let me check the emails. I actually got another email here. Yeah. So you see that before, when I tried the function locally, I already got the email that the car may be towed. So I got it 10 minutes ago. And hopefully, okay, the GPS antenna is flashing blue, so that means it got a signal. So we may get a new message here soon. Still not there. And now it stopped. Alright, yeah, but it should give me the message here. It should call the callback with the right data, and then the Netlify function should process that, send the email via SendGrid, and I should receive that. Now there are a few delays in here, as always, when you're sending emails or things like that. What's wrong here? No, everything's looking good here. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong here. Maybe you can try to run it locally. It's actually already running, so I can try to execute it locally. Okay, so locally it sends the notification, so maybe there's an issue with dates or something like that. Oh no, the problem is that I don't have the end file there. That's usually a good thing to deploy as well. Because without the end file, it can't really connect to the database or anything, so obviously it shows me 0 notifications sent because it can't access the data. But I have no idea how to do it here. Let's see. That's not what I'm looking for. Environment, maybe it's here. Oh, environment variables, yeah, that's probably what I'm looking for. So let me take this off the screen, and as well as this thing, and I'll try to create the environmental files. And we'll see if that works. So it's just going to be a second till I put it all in. So I'm putting here the MS-SQL connection string. I'm putting here the SendGrid API key. And I'm putting here the Sigfox token. And the last thing is the mechanical content project ID. Okay, let's save that. Okay. So let's see if this works. So this is check permits, sends one notification, that's okay. And let's see if I can run the function here. Check permits. Okay, still 0. Still 0. Connection error. Okay, yeah, it may need some additional looking into to see if actually the environmental variables are correctly transferred over to my functions, but I don't know how to do that now, so maybe some other time. And it seems that I'm also not getting the GPS location here. So I'm just trying to put this a bit near the window. The flash is blue, so it should be getting the signal from GPS, but yes, I don't know if it needs to redeploy. We can try that. Okay, stop auto-publishing. Let's try it again. Oh, here's actually trigger deploy. So I have to say it's quite easy. It's my first time using Netlify, and the UI is really easy and intuitive, so that's nice. So let's try to run it again. Nope, still nothing. Still nothing here. So I think we're gonna have to put a pin in that. I'll try to figure out what's wrong there. And let's do a final round here. So it actually keeps flashing blue, but it's not sending the message here. Yeah, now it stopped. Never mind. Anyway, the callback is defined here, so once it actually works, this is going to work the same way. It's going to call the callback, and this is also a good place to debug that, because here you see exactly where that request went to and what were the data. So here you see the ID and the data as well. For debugging purposes, this is really great because you can just take this whole thing and run it from your browser, and you'll see how that works in your function. Alright guys, do you have any other questions for me? If you don't, then I'd like to thank you for watching. Sorry for my hardware being actually in this form, so you see it's still running, but yeah, maybe sometime over Christmas I'll try to make it a bit nicer, make it on a single board or something, but right now it works. That's the important part. So I hope this was inspirational for you. Let me know if you have any other questions on Twitter, and I'll see you in the new year, probably. So thanks for watching. Bye.